Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's Technology Tuesday. We are back, and today we are going to be discussing the technology versus the psychology, and does your system solve all your problems? We're going to talk about that today, and we're going to get started right now. Hey guys, how you doing? Jerry,
We're
thank you for
back,
joining me. I'm your host,
back in the
Greg.
building.
Jerry Franklin Poe, excited for another episode of Technology Tuesday. So, hey, man, tell me, what do you got for me today? What are we going to be discussing, and how is it going to help us?
Oh, folks, it's just so glad to be back live, like a live. Technology Tuesday at 2. Greg and I have been chatting it up over the last couple weeks behind the scenes about technology versus psychology and business. Because one of the things I've noticed, a lot of people have a tendency to believe that technology covers a multitude of problems. So there are things they could avoid dealing with or avoid handling because if I get this tech thing, it should make it all better. And the reality is that all technology, is ultimately only as good as the actual user, right? The computer
Yep.
only does what we tell it to do. Right, the device only does what you tell it to. Even though we have algorithms and things that can almost think, right? You can have technology with artificial intelligence and almost think for itself, but someone had to program it.
Yeah. I mean, I almost want to challenge you because I'm so ingrained in the technology and what it can do. Part of me is like, well, wait a minute, we can do this and we can do that, but at the same time, you're right. It had to be created by someone. So I'm interested to hear your take on this part.
But we can take that to a primary level. So I like to watch movies, all types of movies. Really, documentaries is one of my things. And we were watching the movie together as a family, Seabiscuit, because I look at Seabiscuit, it was an inspirational story. And in the narration as part of the movie, there was this part that came up about Henry Ford and the Model T. And it was so funny that the guy said, you can get every color you wanted as long as it was black. I thought that was so funny. But I mean, some people might not get that joke. But anyway, they were talking about the assembly line and how the assembly line cut down on the amount of time it took to create the car. So Ford wasn't really an inventor of a car, more so an inventor of the process in which the car was built. He was an inventor of the system to build the car, the assembly line process, and how his assembly line process changed how industries operated because people got away from creative craftsmanship, right? So instead of, let's say you were a cabinet maker and you would spend most of your career designing and building cabinets. Now you were not building a whole cabinet. Your job was just to build like a door. Your job was just to build like the floor. So every person, instead of doing the whole process and being creative, they were just specialized in one part, right?
One area. Yep.
One area. But the thing that had to be created first was the process to assemble the thing that you're building.
Mm-hmm.
Like that had to be created first, the process to assemble it. And I think sometimes people are so quick to jump to, let's put this on autopilot. Let's put this on a way where I can be away from it and it just runs itself. So I want to get so quickly to the point where everything is just automatically set up and the technology does it all for me. And I got this thing that does this. I got this thing that does that. And I got all these tools, but all those tools don't replace the skills that you need in order to do business.
It's funny because I think that a good reference from a movie that I saw was The Founder. And The Founder is the story of Ray Kroc, the entrepreneur behind McDonald's and how he dealt with the McDonald's brothers. But in that movie, the McDonald's brothers were creating the system of the fast food franchise, kind of like we know it today. But in the beginning, they were trying to figure out how to get the people to move around. And what they did was they actually went on top of a building or top of a high ladder and looked down so they could get a different view of how the people could move in a way to be able to quickly prepare these meals. In this, so it's like the assembly line instead of a line being in a small compact area of a kitchen, and how to prepare those foods very, very quickly.
So great example. So your example is the automation or the system being the franchise, right? But in order to build the franchise model, they had to first find one model that actually worked. So they went on the tennis courts and they were using chalk on the tennis courts to draw the design of what the building would look like. So how are we going to place everything around in order to get everybody to move smoothly? Because the goal was to get a burger out in a certain amount of time. So how can we get this burger and the meal done for people in a way that's timely? So they were looking at how to design it. So they had to come up with the design first before they can get multiple franchises, right? If one of them wasn't successful, another one would have been successful. So the process was to have the burger here, and the guy put on the 2 pickles, and it was like 1 squeeze of ketchup, 1 squeeze of mustard, the bun. Some guy was on the drink at the same time. The guy was on the fries, right? And all that was happening simultaneously. So you could put your order in, and before you know it, like, oh, here's your burger. And everybody was like, what? Why did it take? Because what we don't realize that fast food wasn't really fast. It was like I had no idea when I saw that movie. I had no idea that when you went to what we call a drive-through, they call it a drive-in. They were taking orders at the car, but they were actually going to cook the food, and they're sitting in your car to get a hamburger versus like having somebody, bam, here it is. So the first time the Ray Kroc went to the McDonald's establishment, he was expecting to wait. And he paid, and then like after he paid, they were like, "Here's your food," and he was like, "What's this?" Because he wasn't ready for it, right?
Wasn't ready for it. Yeah.
So when I think about today's world, what we have done a lot of times is use technology as a crutch or a prop for areas that we haven't fully developed. So there's skill sets that aren't fully developed for a person who wants to be a modern day entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think more specifically, for you, I think it's, people haven't developed their sales process because they're relying on these systems, right? Or things like, webinars or software that kind of creates a sales letter. But all of those things that are templated in systems were developed from people who did the sales, face to face, and then was able to take what they learned from that and experience from that and put it in a different format and work with it enough to be able to come up with a system that works for them. And then take that same thing, like, here's a system that can work for you. But it's sort of like, if you don't know or understand the reasoning behind it, it's harder for that same system to work more successfully for you than it did for the person who created it.
Right. So if you don't know the reason why you're doing stuff, or if you don't know the effect it's going to have, you can't control the process. So for example, we think about all these different tech companies that operate right now. And a lot of times people just think of them only from a tech perspective, but don't know that they are actually studying the psychology of the technology. They're looking at how do we get technology to influence behavior? Because what they understand is their product. Like, their product is not their product. Their product is people. And if you don't understand how to move people, then you cannot move your quote unquote product. So whatever it is that you want to
offer, right there, y'all. that's a quote right there.
If you don't know how to move your people, which are your product, then you can't move your product, right? So, and that's all service businesses. That's all product-driven businesses. You got to know what moves people to action, and then you use the technology to help add to that, right? So it's not the technology that's doing whatever. It's you understanding how to use the technology in order to get it. And I think that's where people like jump and they put the cart in front of the horse, right? So they want to get a result, but they don't understand how the other people actually did it. There was other things that were involved. It's almost like you have to understand stuff from an analog perspective as well as a digital perspective. And people have been too heavy on the digital side, and they've missed the fundamentals behind how it all worked to begin with.
Yeah, I can see that happening in a lot of areas. I also think that certain and I just think it's crazy because now there's so much technology and there's so many tools, and like every single day you could probably see a different tool that can help you in some aspect, form or another. And a lot of times I've seen people just start to get these tools because some of them become very popular, and a lot of the people who they listen to are using them.
Right.
um, and it's almost like anything. I was actually interviewed yesterday for a summit, and we were talking about technology, and we was talking about ways to use it more efficiently. And I was giving them the example of writing my book. Like, I've used Microsoft Word for years, right? I've had it for years, and the truth is, most people have only scratched the surface on the basic word processing program they already have, like Microsoft Word. Like, if you really think about that toolbar up there, you have bold and italics, and you have the bullets, right? um, and a few others, but there's like 20 other more buttons up there that you've never really got into. And part of it is you didn't really need to. But when it came for me to write this book, I had to slow down and listen to a training that showed me how to use some of those other tools in order for me to format it so that I could write my book in a proper way, so that it could be printed in different sizes and etc. So those things. So a lot of us have tools that we don't actually really learn the full extent of what those certain tools can do. And I just, gave you an example of basic Microsoft Word. And so you can think about all the other things you may have, quote unquote, like your email program that can do probably way more than you ever thought possible, but haven't taken the time, to figure it out.
And when you think about it, Greg, your discovery came out of a purpose.
Yes. Yep.
So a lot of folks don't even know where they're going, right? So how can you lead someone to a specific result if you don't even know what the result is? So how do you take a person through a sales process if you don't even know what the sales process is? How do you take a person through a marketing process if we don't know what that is? So you can have all the technology, like Greg said, he had Microsoft Word, he had all the tools, but because he had no purpose for all of it, he wasn't using it. And I think that's one of the dilemmas is we go out there and we get the CRM, the customer or client relationship management system, and we get
One of my favorites.
we get that we get that, and then we get a webinar tool or a live streaming tool. We get the camera, we get the lights, we get all this stuff. And because we haven't really developed, when I say system, when I'm talking about system in this aspect, I'm not saying a system in terms of a technology system. I'm talking about a system in terms of how you operate. What is
Right.
your process for delivering what you want to the marketplace? Because we haven't always figured that out. Like, where are we going? What are we taking people to? What is, like, for example, a lot of people don't create the offer first. And I'm dropping, this is a key secret I use with all my coaching clients. So I'm dropping out this one for those who are paying attention. You have to start from what you want to offer first, and then you build everything around that. Some people don't even know what they want to offer. They don't have a good idea what their product or their service is, and then they don't know why people would even want it. Like, what problem does it really solve? And what happens is, well, we'll use the technology to cover our fear of like rejection. So like if I have this technology tool, I can just run an ad, and then the ads will do whatever they do. And I don't really have to deal with the human aspect of it because I'm not dealing with the person one-on-one. But you're still getting rejected. You just don't see the rejection face to face.
It's funny because if we go back to that example of the Ray Kroc, movie, The Founder, if you break it down, what he did, um, this is before the internet, of course, but he focused on selling, to entrepreneurs this franchise. Like he sold that franchise to other, to other entrepreneurs, and he got good at selling that franchise. And if you think about today, like most entrepreneurs who buy these systems and want to set up things, the ones who are successful can sell to people either online or offline, because usually the skill set is developed offline and then brought online. Same way we were talking about how he kind of got on the tennis court and was looking down at the process and developed the process. And I can remember way back in the days when we were doing direct sales, multi-level marketing, and we were advertising in the paper, right, to get people on the phone to get them to a meeting, right? And so, you know, for me, before the internet was there, it was, we still were advertising, but it was to get people on the phone, right? Whether we could get them live or if they left a message and we called them back, it was always, to get them on the phone. And then we had a script, right? And I developed this script. It's funny, I took from one industry and I used it from another industry. So I remember watching infomercials and calling the 800 number just to see what they would just to see what they would say. And I took exactly what they said, rearranged it for my product, and then when I got those people on the phone, guess what I did, Jerry? Boom, I said exactly what they said, and it worked. It worked like gangbusters. So a lot of times, now when the internet is here, you still have to be able to take certain skills and certain things that you would say to a real person and then put it in a format, either video or sales letter, that can work. But if you don't have the ability to talk to someone and sell your product or service, it can be, and there's always the exceptions to the rule, but for most people it's going to be challenging to be able to take this stuff, and put it in a digital format where that digital is going to work gangbusters for you when you don't have the skill set to do it face to face.
Right. So what you're talking, Greg, you gave an example. So there's a couple of things I want to circle back to that you said that I think were critical. So I'll do with the last one you said first. You talk about how you borrowed something from another industry. Well,
Yep.
what you're talking about, if I break this down it's a teaching moment for those who were taking notes. You probably want to sharpen your pencil, click on your pen. You're talking about principles versus mechanisms. Principles versus mechanisms, right? Principles are so if you put it like this, mechanisms are many, principles are few. Mechanisms always change, principles never do. Now I could take credit for that rhyme, but that wasn't my original one.
I was about to say something, but I didn't want to mess up your flow.
Yeah, that was not me. That's something I've read a lot of books in my day, so I got that from somebody else. His name was Michael Oliver. So Michael Oliver talked about that people focus too much time on mechanisms and not enough time on principles. So what you did is you took a principle and then you switched the mechanism in which how you used it.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, they're using it on this one medium, and I'm going to use that same principle on a different medium, but the principle always works. Doesn't matter how you put it into action. And then when you talk about the founder, Greg, what you're saying is he didn't even create the system.
He just became good at selling it.
He was selling somebody else's system. Right? And he became the founder because he became the founder of a business that sold someone else's system.
Yep. Yeah.
He wasn't the founder of the system. He was the founder of the selling of the system. Like that's what it really was, because his thing wasn't, he was like, man, I haven't seen anything like this before. Yep. But someone had to first create the system that worked. That's the point I want everybody to understand today on Technology Tuesday, is that you can have all the technology in the world, but if you haven't figured out a process that works without technology, then you're probably going to have a hard time having a process that works with it. And so your process needs to be able to work, period, right? You have to have some type of process that if the technology is not the thing holding it up, the process itself is its own foundation. If this is making sense to you, you have to have a selling process that understands how human beings work, the psychology of people, understanding how they're triggered, understanding how their behaviors are changing. You have to understand that in your marketing and in your selling if you want to actually have a process with technology that actually works. That technology doesn't eliminate the fact that people are still triggered by the same stuff. All technology does is make it easier for you to trigger them.
Yep. Yeah.
Technology is just the way to do the stuff easier. It's not a way to eliminate the stuff. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times people are using technology to fill in the void that they haven't already completed themselves. And I think that's where a lot of people fail. They're like, oh, this doesn't work, or oh, that doesn't work, or that's not great, or I tried that and I like this tool. I didn't like this one. I didn't like that one. Greg, what's the next one I could get? Because they're always trying to feel like, Greg, what's the next one I can get? Because this one didn't work. And it's not because the tool, because other people keep using that exact same tool. And it's working for them.
It's like the gym equipment, right? It's like the exercise, machine that you can get and deliver to your home. Listen, it all works if you work it.
Right. It's not.
I mean, it's not rocket science, right? If you eat certain calories and work out, you're going to change how you look. It's not. It's like it doesn't.
Same
no
thing.
No matter what. I mean, because I remember when I was young, and I remember they came out with the Bowflex system. Remember Bowflex?
The Bowflex, yeah.
They had
remember the Nordic. It's like Nordic Track. Remember Nordic Track?
Bands, yeah. Now they got all sorts of other stuff.
Peloton. I get the Peloton on.
The Peloton's a new one, yeah.
And then you got the mirror. So now it's not the Peloton. Get that mirror on your wall. You don't got to go to the gym. You can look in the mirror and do the mirror exercises, right? Mm. And we went from video, right? It was VHS, Jane Fonda VHS tapes, to Billy Blank's DVDs, to now an interactive mirror on the side of your wall that you can just be in your house and exercise. But it's still the same stuff. You still got to change your calorie intake, and you have to change your calorie usage. Like how many calories are you expending versus how many calories you're intake. That's been the same since the history of people exercising. Like you can go all the way back.
That's the principle, right? The mechanism is what machine you're going to use.
Mechanism is a different machine, right? Yep. You could be using what was the John? The Thigh Master. You be using the Thigh Master. You can use the shake weight, whatever it is you want to use. It's all the same. It's all the same thing. Because when you watch when anybody who pays attention to the commercials, they always put at the bottom in like really small print. That's real white print. It's like, yo, this only works if you change your diet. So it doesn't matter how many devices you get.
Yeah.
You still have to at some point people have to understand that they're going to deal with a no. That I'm going to get rejected at some point. And I got to be able to handle rejection. I got to be able to handle the fact that people may not want my product or service. I have to be able to deal with people. Like at some point, you got to understand how people work and how to deal with people, because the process that you want to automate, right, is a process to move people to action. Excuse me. So if you don't know how to move people to action, the technology is not going to help you, because you got to know ultimately, what do I say to people? What is my messaging? What is my positioning? Like, why would someone even want this? Why would someone want to buy this? Why would this be helpful for a person? And all those things, all those questions, technology cannot answer them.
You're right. It's when you understand the psychology and you use it within the technology. So like, even when it comes to email, right, and email marketing, because it all comes with what are you saying? What are you saying in your email messages? What are you saying in your videos? What are you saying on your website? What are you saying in your social media post, right? So it all comes down to, are you saying things in a way that people can be attracted to and hear what you really trying to sell? Because at the end of the day, no matter how people like to say they don't like to sell, everybody is selling all the time, regardless whether they're open-minded to that concept or not. You are. If you have to go for a job interview, you're trying to sell yourself that they pick you, right? If you're trying to convince your children to do the right thing, you're trying to sell them on doing the right thing. Right? You're still selling. You're basically just trying to convince people to do things a certain way, choose things a certain way. And so if you understand the psychology, what moves people, what excites people, what you understand their fears, right, then you can speak and write and record in a way that will attract them to you. And then when you can do that, then you can put this technology that's here and all these tools at your disposal to make that messaging go out to as many people as possible. So the thing, technology, Jerry earlier said, it makes it easier. It also makes it faster too. So, but without taking time to study and learn the psychology of what it takes to, how Jerry put it, move people. I think that's a friendly term to say sell. But then it can really, really help you. And I think that's ultimately what we're trying to drill and make sure you understand today.
Which is one of the reasons why we partnered up together to help folks develop their consistent cash flow machine. Is your experience with the technology tools, my experience with the psychology behind the process. Like, so I didn't study as much tech as you did. You studied more tech, but I spent a lot of time studying interaction with people. So like, why do people do stuff? Why do people behave a certain way? Why do people, change their behavior or not change their behaviors? It was most of my adult life has been spent understanding how people act in a business transaction or in a business world. What's the psychology behind sales in the marketing process? And it's so fascinating that that's where the magic is. People think it's like this, like they're always looking for what's the missing ingredient or the missing piece, and they think it's the next gadget. The next gadget will fill in the missing piece, and it's really the missing piece is just the psychology part that you don't know, the human aspect part that you don't know. And when you understand that, when you understand how people are moved, then you can, what's really funny, Greg, is that you can see it being used in every area of life.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it in politics. You can see it in social media in terms of not just I'm not saying what's being posted on social media. I'm saying how the companies operate. Because
Right.
their understanding of people is what causes them to grow so fast. Like, how does a company come on them? How does TikTok, who something no one ever heard of, all of a sudden now is like on and in the headlines, and Microsoft and Oracle want to buy it? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how does something grow so fast? Because years ago, it would take something forever to become so popular. Right? You just things just didn't get popular overnight. And what you're saying is that it's the speed and the ease that technology it's that part of it, but that can't work if people don't understand what's happening internally. So a lot of the tech companies, they're going to school to understand what they call persuasive technology, or they're studying, how the brain works and how to cause people to take action so you can spend more time on they're looking at how do we change behavior patterns, because the goal is to get people to spend more time on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that they're trying to avoid the stuff that these other companies are specializing in. It's like these people they're spending time studying how to I won't use the word manipulate, but I will say to persuade or influence people a certain way. They look at how do we influence behavior, because they make money off of influencing behavior, and ultimately all of us make money off influencing behavior. They would not give out sponsorships to athletes unless the athletes could influence behavior, right? They would not know.
You still with us?
On some level, we all do. And that's why Greg said we've been selling for a long time. You've been selling since you were born. The first sale you had to make was feed me and change me. Want to change your diaper or feed you, right? Then as you got older, how did you change behavior? Or you tried to sell parents on the fact that you want to stay up past your bedtime. Like, I'm not tired, right? All kids, nobody has to be taught how to sell something. We just do it naturally. And some of us just get better at it over time. And some of us get resistant to it because you didn't know how to deal how to process rejection is so important, which is why with a lot of my coaching clients, I teach them rejection therapy as a way to deal with the process. Because even with the technology, you still got to deal with the fact that things may not happen for you in the speed or the time that you want them to.
Right.
And that's all a mindset. That's all part of your revenue mindset. And if you don't have a strong revenue mindset, no technology, nothing out there from a tech perspective will ever help you. That's basically what I'm saying.
I agree, man. And I think on that note, we are going to wrap it up. There
Put
was
a
some
flag
good,
on it, right? Put a flag.
yeah, man. There's some good notes in there. There's some good key phrases that you guys should check out. I am going to leave you with
Greg, I
one
lost
thing to
your
Google
audio.
and one thing to check out, and that is Google the one sentence. Hold on, let me tell you what it's called exactly. It's called the one sentence. I think we dropped, man. Hold on, let me see if we can get us back right quick.
I know your audio.
So I'll wrap this up. It's the one sentence persuasion course by Brian Warren. Google that. That'll help get you on your way. And with that, guys, we look forward to talking with you next week. Go ahead and join us at technologytuesday.com in the Facebook group. We'll answer all your questions. Jerry, thanks for another spectacular week, and we'll see you guys again next week.
All right.
Take care.